Thing. Good afternoon. Is Monday, July 27th, 2026. I hereby call this meeting of the Bedford Select Board to order with a roll call vote. Mr. Barker?
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Malone? Yes. Mr. Hannigan?
Here.
And I am here. We'll begin with the consent article, Mr. Hanson. There are two things in there.
It's very quickly. We have 3 one-day liquor licenses for our upcoming beer garden on the Common, and we have 3 board and committee reappointments, 1 for Conservation Commission and 2 for Trails.
Comments on the consent agenda, Mr. Barker?
None.
Mr. Mortensen?
None.
Oh.
We're except at the beer garden on August 8th. Let's go.
Oh, just a quick note, we did move the time 2 hours later this year, so that was some feedback we received last year that it was a little too early in the day, so 2 to 6 now, I believe, so. Just FYI.
Too early for a first beverage at 12 o'clock? So that
Was a little.
Respect. Is there a motion to approve the consent article?
Motion to approve the consent article.
And second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or abstentions? 5-0-0. Second item on the agenda, we're going to attempt to appoint town council for not the first time and not the second time. And I really wanted Terrence to be here to make sure we were having a full discussion. So I don't think we need to relitigate everything, but if there are additional comments or awarenesses that people want to share or to restate their own opinions, I'm happy to hear it. Don't be bashful. Ms. Malone.
So the last time when we talked about this, I had mentioned, obviously we've talked about this where we feel like all of them are great. And the last time we talked about it, I had shared my preference. In thinking through this and having more time and thinking through this over again, I am switching. And the reason why is because I feel like they're all great and I would prefer to go with the most affordable firm.
I guess I'd just add to what I had said previously, if that's okay, is that, again, what Boba said, I think that'd all be fine. One thing that weighs in my favor is that Matt has already worked with Mead Tallerman, and I think there'd be some synergies there.
Not to put Terrence on the spot, but you missed our last discussion. Do you want to share anything? Or
I did review the last meeting, and it was a very robust meeting. I agree with everything. Certainly qualified, and I also agree with the consensus that you might look at moving on to different council. Just from what I hear, I would lean towards KP, but other firms have mentioned they have a strong reputation. So I do think that
Do you need more persuading, or if I make that motion, can I don't want to be premature in my,
well, it sounds like the majority of us are okay with Tallerman, so.
may I then? Unless I don't want to steal anyone.
I'm still good with Tallerman. I mean,
like-
I said,
Yeah.
they're all good, but Tallerman would be my top choice.
this one, I would say not everything has to be unanimous, but if it is, that's great. And if it isn't, that's also wonderful. But I think there's probably a motion that we're going to hear in a moment. So let's see what happens.
Okay, so I move that we appoint Mead Tallerman and Costa town council. And do you want through a date or
In the past, we've typically done 3-year terms.
or a 3-year term
Ending June 2029.
Yep, correct.
ending June 2029?
That is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? 5-0-0. Okay. I'll let you deliver the good news.
I will. Thank you.
And should we give a thank you to former town council?
Take it away.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they did excellent work. I think it's good to you know, change up every once in a while, and that's what this is. And I think we appreciate the service they've given us.
No, I will definitely relay the message.
Here. Excellent. Well, a new dawn here in Bedford with our new council. So congratulations, and we look forward to working with them and hearing about how great it is, Mr. Hanson.
Yes, I'm sure it will be good.
Excellent. All right, next item on the agenda is liaison assignment reorganization.
Okay, we do have a list in your packet, but I'll just mention for history, the last few years that I've been here, there's been sort of a tradition of the newer person coming in and maybe absorbing their liaison assignments from the person whose seat on the board they took over, and we haven't spent much time with a meeting where we may go through and consider some, maybe I'd call them more detailed changes, potentially, if folks are interested, trying out new committees and things like that. So it would just be my one comment to keep in mind this evening if folks want to consider changing up or let other board members know that, well, hey, I know you've been on this for a long time, but I'm also interested in that. If you'd like to give it up, that type of discussion would be helpful. But that's sort of my only feedback, just based on how things have developed the last few years. I don't think any of these are set in stone, other than I do know some board members have certain dates that, because their work schedule or personal life fit well for them, or they have a very strong just personal interest in a certain topic that they may not want to give up. And so some of the list has been developed around that as well. So that's all I have by way of introduction.
I will just say I'm in general a terrible liaison because I'm very busy. I own that. I have tried each of the past 2 years to encourage us to change and been rebuffed both times. I do think change is good. We all have things that we like. I would encourage folks to be flexible in their thinking and perhaps think about maybe changing one or two if they're willing. I don't know what the most effective way is to sort of go about doing that, but I would just sort of, I'd like to see some movement as opposed to no movement. We made very few changes the past couple of years, except for a couple that I think Paul took on. So that's my only comment before we get into the weeds.
Perhaps rather than just going through the list we had before, if there are committee members who want to start by talking about committees that currently have dates or times that maybe don't work as well for them, or interests on other committees or interests they currently have that they may be willing to give up if somebody else had interest in them, maybe start with those first rather than alphabet.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I would start with, I would be happy to trade with someone. I've run up against missing bicycle advisory committee meetings in favor of TAC meetings, and I would trade TAC with someone else.
I would just say that on Mondays we have select board meetings, or I have work board meetings, so I'm almost never able to go to Board of Health. So I'd be willing to swap Board of Health if someone else is available on Mondays that we are not meeting, because I never am.
I'm keeping notes as we go too.
Do we, Paul, can I ask you in terms of the, I heard you say bicycle, not, wait, TAC and bicycle.
So
is the same line?
I was saying sometimes there's a conflict where there'd be both.
Do you,
And it's not my natural interest either.
can you tell me in terms of monthly Wednesdays, what's the time?
I can tell you right now, because John McLean,
Seven, first Wednesday. I'm only asking because rec is on typically on a Wednesday as well, but now they've changed it back and forth.
Mhm.
That if I can confirm with rec that it doesn't conflict, then I could. No, it states Tuesdays here now, but I think in the past it's been Wednesdays, and then it's been changing. Now it's not as consistent as it used to be, so I'm not sure if they're gonna go back to the typical Wednesdays or however it is, but if I could,
Maybe we
could
do
we
it.
have another week of like confirming?
No, I think there's no rush, but I do want to, I like where we're heading. Maybe we could do a 3-team trade here, so I can get involved. We could do like a rec, Board of Health, tax shuffle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Later.
Well, and I
A meeting to
appreciate.
be named later.
I appreciate this conversation coming up, because I feel like like I would like to get off of the Arbor resource, because Thursdays, it's not good for me. I have events like almost every Thursday, and it's just, that committee has been tough as well, so.
Terrence, anything you're curious about? Assignments?
I'm just getting comfortable with all of the assignments I have, and I don't really have any issues. I mean, I'm willing to be a team player and help anyone out, but I like all my assignments, so.
No one's going to be forced to do anything here, but I think you are an exemplary liaison, Terrence, so thank you. John, how you feeling?
I mean, I like mine as well. I will say that the first 4 I go to pretty much every time. The planning board, whereas it's bi-weekly, I haven't been going, like, I was going like every other time, and then the comprehensive plan got ramped up, so I've been going to that instead. So I don't know, Paul, if you've gone there.
Yeah.
If someone is willing to share that with me, I would, try to go back to going regularly. And then trails, I would say a couple things. I haven't gone there regularly, but I'm not convinced that someone needs to go there regularly. They get very deep. They do a great job. They get very deep into the details about particular trails. So I've kind of left it open that if they have any select board related questions, they'll let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But in fairness, if there is somebody that's interested in going to the monthly meeting and delving deep into trails, and I don't want to block them from doing that.
I would certainly be interested in trails. If James shove, yeah.
And may
You may.
speak, is, so it's a mixed bag of level of effort, depending upon the committee. And TAC, the select board member is a voting member, so you kind of have to go to those meetings. But I do like others where if you don't go, the chair is very happy to, give you a ring or an email. So back, I get Peter Weichman will email me, and I'm happy to, try to help him. Same with Council on Aging. If they particularly want me there, I'll make sure to get there. So anyway, I'm just sharing with everyone. It's like, I don't think we're compelled to go to every meeting or whatsoever.
And your comment sheds light on the fact that there are committees on which select board members are voting members when I think they should not be. Like, I think it is not a good thing that a select board member is a voting member of ESC and TAC versus CapEx, when I think it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know how that came to be. It places additional burden on us, which I don't really appreciate, and it makes things really difficult. And I know committees are hard to fill, but we can't always be relied on to be at every meeting. It's actually impossible to look at this list. So I'm empathetic to that perspective.
By the way, on that list of committees where select board members vote, both Sean and I vote on the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. That's not a problem, I don't think. So I think it's just ad hoc, which ones are, I'd agree with you.
Like, it was like, which one? And it was, I'd like to hear the rationale, like how some of those things came to be, because it feels to me just like, oh, they should, oh, they shouldn't, like, why?
Yeah, and I think in a broader sense, we don't want to essentially raise the bar for select board for us or future select board members such that a person can't do it when they have a full-time job or other things going on in their life. I think that wouldn't do the town a service if, we got to the point where a select board member was expected to go all this stuff and they just weren't able to.
Yeah, I agree, and I was gonna say, like, I appreciate this coming up, and if it was a month ago, I'd be like, okay, I would love to learn new things, but at this point with my job, like, I feel like I really cannot learn anything right now. Like, I can't learn. So it's like, I'd rather just, and again, it's like, I'm open and I would love to actually experience different committees, but it's just been really tough to like go to all these meetings and then staying till like late at night.
Right, and as we also know, like, when we're providing quorum, it makes it even harder for us to miss. So what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing that there's some flexibility or potential changes around the Board of Health position, the Trails position, the Rec Commission, and TAC perhaps. I'm hearing that Terrence likes his, which
The select board chair, and that select board chair in there saying, Council on Aging, they'll call me and say, hey, we really want this.
Makes no sense. I have a full-time job, but I can make time during the day much more easily than I can in the evenings. That's just the hard part for me. I'm teaching 4 nights a week, so it's hard for me to not teach and go to meetings a lot. So I think if we could have another call about time of meeting, it would actually give us more information to make better decisions about, because I actually don't know when Trails meets, but I know that doesn't the Depot Park meeting happen during the day?
It's kind of ad hoc.
It moves around.
Tends to be more during the day.
Magic meetings are during the day, right? MAPC meetings during the day, right? So that's why those are easier for me to make than evening meetings. So I think we'll need some more information to make some maybe additional decisions, but I think we're on the track to making some changes actually pretty quickly. So I appreciate the conversation and sharing. So I don't think we need to do anything right now, but I think we'll do something next time when we have a more comprehensive list of when those meetings are. If that works for everybody else.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for that discussion.
I'm curious about the MAHT because it says monthly Wednesdays, and I don't know if that's been set up. I know that was recently merged with the BHP, so that was the first time I heard monthly Wednesdays.
No, that's probably what we have sort of in our records, but you're right, these have been more as needed, right? With the way Eric's been scheduling this since he started, right?
The MAHT has been more as needed and during the day, but the BHP was, before it got essentially disbanded, it was monthly, regularly, the first Tuesday. So I don't know what the going plan is ahead.
Okay, well, we'll certainly update that on the list as either TBD or check with the current chair to see what their intent is for the trust.
Great.
And those have been during the day, to Dan's point.
Before we hop off into our goals, anything else burning that we want to, or have we discussed bringing Molly Haskell back for an interview at our next meeting?
She has withdrawn her application.
Okay.
Yeah, well, sorry if that wasn't really, but yep, so
I
that's.
probably heard that and forgot. I apologize. Okay.
From-
Any other business before we hop into goals?
No.
All right, Mr. Hanson, let's go.
Okay, so in your packet, we have, I'll make sure my mic is nice and close just for Bedford TV and for you as well, so the folks at home can hear us on the recording. We have an updated fiscal year 26 goal list along with a start of a fiscal 27 goals. And really for Terrence's benefit and for the board, I mean, what we've done the last 2 years now is we've gone through the current list of goals sort of by category, and I think as we go, we sort of put placeholders, or put a pin in the ones that we want to keep for next year. So we sort of preemptively did that this year with our draft of the fiscal 27 goals, but it's certainly all up for discussion and debate. Just want to be very clear that the fiscal 27 are not set in stone yet. Just a reminder that throughout the year, we were giving more sort of milestone updates on these goals, like this month we did this month we did this. So in this rolled up version, it's sort of just how the goal was completed for the year. The 4 categories, as a reminder: infrastructure, financial, transportation, and then community investments and engagement. And just a quick note at the beginning, we usually, or what we did last year was we started by reviewing the overarching priorities statement. We changed it slightly. Last year was continued DEI efforts, affirmation of school and townwide anti-hate efforts, and sustainability, as sustainability encompasses everything. So I did put a note here, even though that wasn't a goal that technically would have a response, it was just sort of an overarching priority. I did want to note that I served on the school department's anti-hate and bias task force, meetings, the different reports that they put together and things like that. Just want to make known that our office was very involved in those efforts.
Thank you.
I guess to start, do we want to make any changes to our overarching priority statement that bleeds into each of the goals? I didn't have any. Okay, great. So I'm just going to jump right in. Under infrastructure, fire station construction, I'm not going to read through this entirely. It would be a bit of a bore, but anyone who drives by can see that we're making great progress. We're essentially on schedule. Really just talking about some of the next steps, near complete with Veterans Memorial Park. Traffic signal mast arms will be delivered and installed in the late spring of this year into early summer. We're obviously recommending that this goal moves forward onto fiscal 27, changes slightly rather than construction. It's going to be focused more on construction and closeout. we put in here that will really take a focus as this project comes to a close on the site work, utility coordination, the roadway and traffic safety improvements, and then we're going to have the whole occupancy planning and project closeout effort. So there's still a lot of work to do, even though the building is more than half complete at this point. So we recommend that goal continue.
I think it should continue.
100%. Until that is functioning, it's a goal.
Yeah, definitely great. Springsbrook Park, we have a photo of the schematic design here. The approval for this contract of the design was approved on July 7th, just at 2 meetings ago. We're recommending that this stays on as well, but this is going to be a little bit more of a open-ended goal rather than a direct directive to complete something. So how we have the recommendation for fiscal 27 worded is to advance the implementation of the master plan, including completion of the design work for phase 1, and develop a sequencing and funding strategy for selected future project phase or phases. That's because there were several additional phases, not all of which have been fully supported or voted or recommended by this board yet, and all of which have not been funded yet. So we certainly don't want a goal that we can't achieve. So the goal will really be for the board to continue to revisit it until you have or have not selected future funding phases, essentially.
So as you all know, and I will say, I am absolutely against the plan that we saw. 100%, and I told that to my friends Josh and Robin. So I'm happy to keep it on here. I will be a consistent no in what we've seen, but I'm always happy to talk about the park as an asset, just not the plans we've seen so far.
No, I think that's totally appropriate. There are some other potential aspects of trails and other things that could be done with or without the pool. So I'm not personally trying to push the pool by keeping the goal on here, other than they did do the master plan and we've only done the very first piece of it.
I'm only 1 of 5, so if my esteemed colleagues want to keep it on there as is, it's totally fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think we should keep it on.
I think we should keep it on as well. It doesn't mean we have to agree with everything that's there, but
Right.
it's something that there's a lot of interest in the community about, so we should be talking about it.
And at the very least, you will see a request for construction funding for Phase 1B, which will be the second component of this. So you'll see at least the completion of the first section of Springsbrook that doesn't impact the pool decision at all.
Great.
So even if you end there, you can complete this portion at next year's goal setting.
Good to go.
Okay. Number 3 is coming along nicely. Got off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but by the time we got MAPC on board, they've been doing a great job. We have been meeting with them, I think, every week for the past 2 months now. We just had a very successful public engagement forum, a virtual forum, where we had 48 or so attendees at the max. That was on July 22nd. We're consolidating all that feedback. Matt was updating the website today with some of that feedback, the summaries. We're recommending keeping this goal on for several reasons. One, the community engagement process is continuing into this fall, where we'll be scheduling probably late September the in-person public forum, and we'll need to make some recommendations to the select board and very likely prepare a town meeting funding request for design of whatever future use the board chooses.
I think this is important.
Very important.
So if no additional thoughts on that, I do have a link to the fire station reuse landing page, and just a quick note here for the public, if you're interested, you don't have to go searching through the website. One of our quick links on the homepage of the website, future use, fire station future use project, you can't miss it, it's on the homepage. Solar photovoltaic on municipal buildings. We have a few photos here of the 3 approved solar projects. There are certainly more buildings in town, though. So if the board is so inclined, we could have a goal, something along the lines of move approved municipal solar PV projects into implementation, contracts, and project delivery. And then we also can and intend to develop recommendations for next phase opportunities for additional municipal facilities or locations. What we say is or locations is because the facilities department has already done a lot of legwork for potential ground-mounted parking lot solar. That's something they're very interested in as well. So we're happy that we got these 3 buildings in the pipeline, but there's certainly, I think, interest to expand the program or continue to look into it.
I think we should continue to look into it and expand it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I also wonder, should we make this even broader to something like municipal energy use and, yeah, like reduction of sustainability within municipal buildings, energy, something like that?
Yeah, I considered that as well, and we certainly can. You'll see I have a placeholder there because one of the other items in particular, one of the big items we're looking at is ground source heat pumps. The facilities department is looking into those as we continue to look at boiler replacements. That does fit neatly in with the same vein of our overall greenhouse gas in our building inventory. So I do think those 2 items could be combined, and rather than just make this a solar goal, have a goal about I know we have our plans and whatnot, but something along the lines of incorporating, how do I want to word it? Regularly updating the board and pursuing greenhouse gas reduction measures in line with our
Net zero plan?
net zero plan. Thank you.
I like that.
That gives us more permission to do more things, I think, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, just a quick note, even though we have a plan, a lot of communities have lots of plans, but highlighting that on our goals, I think brings more attention to our office. It brings more attention to the other department heads when they ask what their priorities should be. So I think that's a great idea to kind of rope those 2 together.
Only because we're here and reference is the pre-construction phase. Can you update us on the timing of when we might see construction and first power generation?
I really cannot think of a specific date offhand. I don't want to give a date. I could follow up as soon as tomorrow, though.
I guess for fiscal year 28, could we reasonably assume that they'll be online and operating?
Yes,
Great. Excellent.
definitely think so. Yep, so 100% yes on that.
Great.
I will note the way we were slightly changing this goal and some of the other items that we would be looking at are likely multi-year projects. So I just want to clarify that when we change this goal, it will be a little less tangible for some of the projects that might come online, such as even designing a ground source heat pump system might take, a few years. For example.
Yeah.
So just FYI. Is there anything while we're on the infrastructure category that we haven't thought of? And just a reminder, we have financial, transportation, and community investment and engagement still on the line. So infrastructure is non-transportation related infrastructure that you want us to consider.
I don't know if this would fit.
Sorry, they got to hear you.
Sorry. So I don't know if this would fit under infrastructure or community investment. I was at the Rec Commission meeting last week, and they were talking about how, we're different projects that we're doing, the growth in our town, and in terms of our space with, enrollment and like not having enough space for all the, recreation things. So I don't know if that should be a goal and under infrastructure to look at ahead of time while we're, having these developments and thinking of growth and things like that, so.
Be more, are you talking about like accommodating folks for summer ventures or kids club or no, got it.
And different space, so like, obviously, we've had development on Loomis, is that Loomis Street?
It certainly is. I can confirm.
Carlisle Road,
Sure.
where, so like with these developments, obviously, we're talking about growth and, but just in terms of our space, we actually don't know.
What's the status of the yellow building expansion? That was on the capital plan for a while, wasn't it?
It was on the capital plan, and then after we did the space needs assessment, it was determined that the issues with that building are more about the awkward configuration within the building and less about the need to add on to that building. So the facilities department maintains that building. You'll see placeholders for things like flooring, painting, all of that stuff. But expansion is less needed rather than reconfiguring certain areas for better use.
Sure.
Then the other thing, Bopa, I don't know if Matt wants to explain more about the feedback we received at the recent public forum. A lot of it is focused on a space for teens and activities for after-school use. So I think that's going to be incorporated in some capacity in the second forum for the future of the fire station, which will then potentially impact Old Town Hall. So we are considering both of those buildings for potential recreation uses, and the Rec Commission is intending to share their feedback and then attend other public forums. So if that helps clarify anything.
Just the only gentle pushback is we're seeing a steep decline in school-age enrollment, and we will still see some recovery from another 100 units that come online or 200 in the next couple of years, but it won't replace the students that we've lost. Used to be kindergarten to 210 kids, now it's 130. So there'll be an eventual rebound, but we were talking about a second floor and a dance studio over there, but to move that to the fire station makes all the sense in the world, so.
So I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but it seems so, is I would like to see the select board have more conversations about development in town and how, you know, how we can support it if we have the infrastructure, you know, what it would, just more implications of congestion, because we've had just a lot more development, like a super amount.
All the questions I get, 90% are about development. I'm like, what do you want me to do on the select board? So maybe we should discuss, you know.
I think we have to discuss it more, and just, it'd be interesting if there's a consensus, a rule of thumb, how we think about it. There might not be consensus, that's fine too. But I know, for example, when we're doing the MBTA zoning, the select board left that entirely with the planning board. And I think that I would like to see more engagement of the select board.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for us to be engaged. I mean, we are looked to as leaders in the town. I want to be careful, though, because like you just mentioned, Dan, people come up to you and talk about development. They come up to me, and that's not really our purview. It really is the planning board. We can offer opinions, but if it's a goal, I'm a little concerned to sign us up to something that we can't follow through on.
Right, I mean, when I answer people, I said the one thing we have done is talk about Springs Road and created what we wanted up there with some parameters, which I think we felt very good about, but you know, our opinion doesn't count for we're not on planning board or ZBA, so.
We get some things like we got a say in Springs Road. We had to approve the Carlisle Road because that was a lip.
Yep.
But in most cases, like with the MBTA, I mean, we can speak as leaders of the town, but really that was between the planning board and town meeting.
Yep.
So I would agree with that, Sean, and I wouldn't want to try to step on their toes, so to speak, right? But I do think that we are leaders in the town, and it would be nice to be able to get up to bat on some of the issues that, you know, actually could reasonably be within our purview. And, you know, that's old and cold, so I'm not like,
Well,
trying to be a whiner about it. But
I think we can and should encourage other boards to come before us. I mean, when on the school committee, we were approached to talk about ADUs very thoughtfully by a planning board to get our buy-in. I think we would appreciate that level of conversation on pretty much anything about development, at least have a conversation in public about it. So I think fostering that, if we're not doing it better, let's do it better, and invite folks in to talk about it.
Yeah, I think Paul makes some valid points that we should be at least a voice out there, whether or not, you know, we have ultimate say in any given project. I think the residents are looking for us to at least give our thoughts and our opinions on things. So. Go ahead, Matt.
How would you select board goalify this feelings, Paul?
Well, not quite certain how to give you a measurable right now, but I would say this, for example, and this is just from my skimming of the newspaper of the, and Matt sent us some stuff too, the idea about, and it's still, in beginnings, the idea that we might buy the Bedford hotel, motel, whatever it is, and make
We
it a
being the Mortensen family or the town of
the Mortensen family with a vast wealth.
$1 million
right?
one?
And let's say that got super, legs. It's like, well, I don't think the select board should be, quiet on that. I think, we should be active at any point in time. I mean, just going back to some of this development, things change. People, need to live at places, right? But one could argue that the development that we have can fundamentally change a town, which towns fundamentally change, and that's great. But I think the select board should be probably talking about it frequently.
Sure. What do you think, Matt?
I've seen this done a few different ways in a few different towns, and there's no right or wrong way for that to happen. I think this is a very normal conflict because the select board is the boots on the ground for a lot of resident feedback on issues, but planning boards in general drive the discussions and drafting of plans for changes. I think the point is well taken for maybe some procedural changes and communication changes. I struggle with how it might be incorporated into a goal. But just for example, in Tingsboro, they had a real history and tradition that the planning board worked on a lot of zoning changes every year. It was a growing community, but they never wanted to come up with a rezone that the select board was not in support of because they knew it had a very small chance of getting approved at town meeting if the select board and the finance committee and the planning board were not in agreement going to town meeting. So they would typically, someone either through the town planner, give an update to the select board, or through the town manager or a board member would come and say, this is something we're going to start looking at this year. Do you have any sort of initial feedback? Like, what's your gut check, select board, on this idea? Not, do we have permission to go look into this? Because obviously they can do whatever they want as an elected board, but just from like a consensus of the community type issue, are we wasting our time looking into this if you're not going to support it when we get there? Then usually once more, about halfway through, they would say, we've sort of narrowed it down. This is what we're still thinking. And then the point was, by the time the final version came, they sort of knew, and the select board had this small amount of feedback throughout the process. That's not the norm in a lot of communities. I mean, I think how we do it here is we get a finished product from them and it's really an up or down vote. And I think it helped a lot what I saw in my previous community where, someone, whether it was through the town manager or someone else, would have some input into those along the way.
Is there a planning board elected as well?
Yes. Yeah. Which it would be a little bit about a culture change, and it would not be, it was not in the sense of trying to change anyone's vote. It was really just about ensuring that what was brought forward would have the most consensus. So I think there's ways that we could try to push for that coordination and communication, whether it's a goal or not.
I'd be curious as to how the planning board might do something like that. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, to.
Yep.
I like to think we're one big happy family in Bedford, so, if you want, just me personally, as one planning board member, not for it.
I know it's
John
going to be.
McLean, 8 Maple Street. John McLean, 8 Maple Street, not speaking for planning board, but a planning board member. I think, to your point, right, at the end of the day, town meeting actually owns zoning, not planning board, right? So it's really a question of what's the right way to get things passed by town meeting. And clearly, select board has a valuable view in that, right? So I think talking is fine. I think talking is good. Not speaking for planning board.
I thought that was well put. It's not, it would be foolish if, I was saying, we're going to try to run roughshod over the planning board, not my intent. And, yeah, well put, John.
So Do we want to expand that, though? Because there are other boards that have items before town meeting that we might want to, I mean, planning board most obvious with the zoning amendments, but sometimes the Board of Health might have an initiative. I definitely don't think we should get into schools because that's their purview, but do we want to make it just about development and planning, or in general to coordinate with boards that have business before town meeting?
May I, Dan?
Sure.
So my view is that I think we should just pay more attention on planning board stuff because, I mean, everything that different boards do is important, right? But I think the idea of, let's say, the development along the Great Road, I think that's just more within our bailiwick. I'm not sure if I can say it any better than that, but quite honestly, on the Board of Health stuff, I wouldn't have wanted to have touched with a 10-foot pole the COVID stuff, right? God bless, let them have that. But I do think that it's a natural for people to, look to the select board and say, gee, what do you think of all of this?
I mean, the most vanilla way to put it is to say, we can help foster greater consensus and discussion on large planning articles, as they move forward, and help foster conversations and presentations. And so we can all hopefully be one big happy family or have Thanksgiving. I mean, I'll disagree. I mean, either way is fine. But I mean, I think we should probably be doing it anyway, but maybe we've not. But I mean, on the hotel thing, I mean, who knows? The article made a lot of interesting claims, which may or may not have been true. But we should be, what do we do in that? We keep an eye on it. We engage with that when appropriate. I mean, we do that. I think we do it anyway. So what's the actual action you're asking for? Is to us to be more involved, to foster more collaboration, to be more engaged?
Personally, more involved. I mean, I am happy to just give the sense of Paul Mortensen, and then the five of us, give the sense of the select board and let the planning board think about it as they may. I don't have anything more concrete tonight.
John, one more?
So I missed the last planning board meeting and discussions on the Arrowhead Hotel, but my understanding, based on the meeting before, is that's actually a select board thing, right? Because it comes down to whether the town, which is your decision, wants to buy something.
I get that.
So, I mean, planning board may actually have nothing to do with that particular issue.
But we probably want to talk with you about what it would look like before we took an action.
Sure. So, but I mean, now it's sort of, it's the opposite direction you guys are discussing. Which, again, we're one big happy family.
Or Paul can spy it for us and give it to us as a gift, so we'll figure it out. I don't want to overtalk this right now. I'm not sure if we're going to get to it. I think we all kind of want to do it. I think it needs to be a standalone goal, but let's all remind ourselves that as this project as move forward, we want to be engaged in conversation with our other boards and committees.
So quite honestly, that's fine, right? But I think it's one of the most important things in town, right? So, a lot of the stuff, I mean, with what happens with a particular building, number 3, is not going to change the character of the town forever. The development, if you do too much development or do it in a way that's, without select board input, I just think that has the potential to change the town.
So do you want to come up with a specific goal about that parcel? Like sub-infrastructure?
I guess all I'm saying is I think it wouldn't hurt to have it as a goal number 5, more select board conversation over the next year about density, really.
I was also going to suggest if you wanted to have agenda items, maybe quarterly, about developments that are happening in town, and it's not necessarily an action item for the select board to vote on, but if you feel like you're not having an opportunity in front of the board on an agenda to talk about Loomis or the hotel or things that people are talking about in the community, maybe you have a placeholder where Matt and I give you an update on what the planning board has been talking about or what residents have been talking about, and it's not necessarily something
He
to.
said.
Done.
I like that too.
Okay, let's move on, Mr. Hanson.
Under financial, The Fiscal Planning and Coordinating Committee is one that essentially we decided after the goal was set to turn that into more of a working group. It did meet a few times. If we were to keep this as a goal, we currently have this drafted as a recommendation for use the working group format among the Select Board, Finance Committee, and School Committee leadership to strengthen long-range fiscal planning, budget coordination, and shared understanding of major operating and capital pressures. I think this would just align with the fact that we are getting closer and closer to our levy limit. We know that each year we're wondering whether it's, sort of 1, 2, or 3 years away where we're going to hit that limit. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be on the goal list in order for us to do that, but certainly not much harm in keeping it on there. It would just be a goal that would be a reminder to meet and that these are the important things to talk about, but it wasn't a goal that saw a ton of action in fiscal '26.
I mean, now that it's happening, I think we take it off. You're not going to forget to have that working group meet, right?
I'd like to see it continue happening, but I agree that it doesn't need to be a goal. I think we definitely still have a lot of stuff to discuss in that group, but.
May I?
You can just talk, Paul.
Is, as long as we're doing it, I do agree that's the important thing as compared to leaving it as a goal. I think if we leave it or something just like ad hoc, continuous conversations or intermittent conversations with other boards and committees, I think that signals to townspeople that we're paying attention.
I mean, one could retitle it like the oncoming fiscal apocalypse or something softer. Like, we will continue to monitor the status of our levy limit and stuff and make sure, and you can say it smarter than I can, as opposed to saying, oh, the fiscal planning and coordinating group will satisfy that need,
I like that because we are paying attention to it, and this shows a commitment that we're paying attention to it. So
Yeah.
people can't come up and say, what are you doing about this? We're doing something about it.
So a lot of times, these kinds of goals things, you just like really trying to, I don't know, come up with stuff. But here, I think this is fundamentally important to have.
You want to change, I kind of want to change the title.
I think we can incorporate it in, and maybe into Goal 6. Does that maybe make a bit more sense? That is about our monthly financial reporting, and we are going to have a new, more in-depth model. It's being developed by our finance director. So I think if we beef up 6 and maybe change the title.
Really, for me, honestly, that's not my favorite. But it is, I suppose you could put it in, but ad hoc, continuous conversations with other, town decision makers or, again, interested parties. Because it was basically school committee chair, finance chair, the select board chair, each with a wing person, and then, staff. And I think that worked out really well. It shouldn't be official because then it's, I just like ad hoc.
But if it's going to give you heartburn to get rid of it, we can just leave it.
Well, it's up to the group,
I have no particularly strong opinion, but Paul, I feel like you do, so I'm happy to keep it.
To me, it's again just so much more important than some of the other stuff like that. These people's tax bills, and I think they want to make sure that the grown-ups are talking to one another. And 100% in those ad hoc meetings, we were talking to each other and trying to steer the ship in a way that being responsible adults.
Yeah,
Leave it. Okay.
And I do think, to Matt's point, number 6 can be simplified into number 5 if you want, because Matt is going to continue to give you financial updates based off of those meetings on a regular basis. I'm not sure if since those are going to be part of your packets, no matter
That's the
what.
one I pushed last year.
Okay.
And I just felt like I didn't,
And that's now a function of kind of the regular packets, so that's less of a goal for you and part of his regular work, and then 5 can remain. Does that work for you, Paul?
it works for me, but I'm not Mr. Chair.
Or Dan, yes.
If Paul's happy, I'm happy.
I almost believe you.
So we're not going to call it the coming apocalypse?
I tried gently.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's fiscal planning and interboard coordination. So it's not specific to the working group meeting anymore. It's just interboard coordination and fiscal planning. So that's pretty vague, or pretty broad, I should say.
All right, can I be?
Stop it, stop
Can
it.
we just put ad hoc in there somewhere? I think ad hoc is important because otherwise if it's something we're gonna say, yep, you do it this time,
Put that in the description, right? It doesn't work.
it's more like you actually have to have,
Yep, got it. Okay. So I'm gonna roll 6 up into 5 to make 5 a little beefier, add the word ad hoc. And again, this is just the draft. We'll send this out and finalize it on the next select board meeting, but does that look okay? Sound okay to everybody? For employee recruitment and retention and compensation practices, we have an update for fiscal '26. We made some good progress on the budget, so we're still able to afford a healthy cost of living adjustment for the staff. We made, as you know, changes to the work schedule for many buildings and many employees. That's been a tremendous success from the recruitment and retention perspective. Well, it can be revisited in the future, but it's been successful so far. I made a list here of just a small amount of the appreciation lunches and things that we do throughout the
I
year.
have questions about
Yeah.
Sparkle Day and Cluck Trick.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
What are those two things?
Sparkle Day, Amy says it best, it's when when the DPW washes all their trucks.
Yeah,
and
they
And they were excited about that?
2 days a year where they clean all of their equipment in their garage. So bring all the trucks in, all of their equipment, and then they also have a barbecue on site to thank the union members for all of their work. So that is DPW. And the Cluck Trick is supposed to say Cluck Truck, which is Augusta's chicken.
Which we do know and love.
Yes. So we have a summer event here for employees.
All the truck?
Yes,
That's really good.
bring that here in the summer, and then we do one event in the winter as a thank you to all employees.
With the different dipping sauces. Yeah, that's very important. So you want to keep this as a goal?
I have some potential language, if we were to keep it, that we could continue reviewing the compensation, COLA, job descriptions. We do have a new HR director, been with us about half a year, is doing an excellent job. It's not a real tangible goal like it may have been 2 or 3 years ago when we had first got the results of the Collins Center study and we're making big changes to the salary bylaw. So if we want to just get rid of it,
Get it out.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I think mission accomplished.
Never care about tenure. Just kidding.
Yeah, again, this now.
Good job.
Category
Check.
of
Regular, ongoing.
ongoing.
It was a lot of work, so good job.
Yeah,
Major changes.
it's been good. Future PEG access, we have some updates here. We signed a new agreement that was specifically drafted with language that anticipates a potential future merger or would allow a future merger into a town department if we were to go that route at some point in the future. So it was a good success this year. The Cable Management Committee also put together their ad hoc working group to review this, along with members of our office, POPA, School and Finance Committee members. I think we've made some really good progress. They're also looking at, potential inclusion in the new fire station, or the old fire station that will be newly renovated in the next few years. So there's been a lot of movement from the PEG, for PEG access services. I do think we could leave this on because it has not been solved yet.
I would leave it on. It's very important.
So financial, I think where we have a lot thrown into what is really goal number 5 now, the ad hoc working group, more regular updates, future of PEG. We don't have anything else there unless you have recommendations?
I do. I think over the course of this year, and hopefully well in advance of the next few months, is I think we need to nail down what is what with what we're paying for education for the base, for Lincoln residents on the base. Because it's a big, confusing item, but I think it's a lot of money. And I think townspeople ought to know if we're paying for kids, Lincoln residents,
You mean at Bedford High School?
altogether. At, there are 3 buckets, Bedford High School, then there's out of placement, and there's Ed Shawshing. And
I thought this was a settled thing with active members versus retired members versus citizens.
I don't think it is.
This year, both the general government side and the school side received $200,000 respectively to offset the additional costs of the sort of the Hanscom families, but who technically reside in Lincoln, but are members of Hanscom. That's a one-time, and we received some one-time money last year as well. So
I'm sorry, they living on base or off base?
living,
On base, I think.
yeah, on base,
Okay.
on base, but technically on the Lincoln side of the base. Yep.
Sure.
So we do receive some money from the state and federal government for those programs, but in short, those funding scenarios were set up before we had, out-of-district placements and regional schools that we received separate bills for. So the question is really about the long-term funding stability of that.
I have many questions, and I feel like this is a very important goal.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot offline, but I think that, I think we have to know the legal underpinnings of not only our responsibilities, I guess of our responsibilities. So we're going to have an invoice to pay, right? And it's on the town side. And can Matt sign that, right? For let's say Shawshing, Lincoln residents, Hanscom, who we write the check for. Why not Lincoln? And I don't even know if these legally authorized. There's a whole story behind it, but it's just, I think we have to get to the bottom of it.
So
including with our new law firm.
I think there's a lot of weeds here, so let's
There are a lot.
let's grow those weeds and have a deliberate discussion and see where this leads, because
One more thing, Dan. I do not mean this to be incendiary, right? And, I think Bedford is an Air Force town, period. And Hanscom kids are Hanscom kids, and on many, many levels. I don't think they're Bedford kids or Lincoln kids. I think they're Hanscom kids. And I say that in a positive sense. I think that's considered positive. So, but I think it's fair to ask the question, whose dime is it, Lincoln's or Bedford's?
Didn't the funding come from Ken Gordon, special appropriation? And I'm just wondering if that's something that he feels can be done every year.
Probably, I guess the issue there would be each rep is sort of only allotted so much discretion each year. So our goal would be to get something permanently written into the law, so it doesn't have to be brought up every year, because otherwise he would sort of be spending his discretionary earmark funding on this one topic, and we wouldn't be able to do some of the other fun projects that state reps like to fund every year.
Is that what he said to you?
Yeah.
He did? Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of things here. Just when we get into it, we're going to talk about that 514. We're going to talk about who pays for voc ed. We're going to talk about retirees. We're going to talk about how Lincoln gets full reimbursement and we don't get full reimbursement. We'll talk about this other 200, which we get billed for. So there's a lot in here. So let's get into it. Yeah. Not now, but
Yeah, I have a
this year.
placeholder, review and develop long-term funding plan for the Lincoln Hanscom residents. We'll reword that a bit, but I think that's a good placeholder.
Thank you for that one, Paul.
Anything else under the finance section? All right, seeing none, move on to transportation. We have a couple great photos in here. This is the island that we built at Crosby Drive for, oh goodness, Amy, can you remind me the name of the company? Totally drawing a blank. Integris, thank you. They have staff that daily, numerous staff had to cross the street there. It's very dangerous. And basically through a lot of back and forth and partnerships, we were able to get this done for them. So it was sort of a win-win. That's just one example we wanted to highlight, but there's been a lot of great work done by particularly the DPW staff, the staff traffic management team. I anticipate you're going to want to keep roadway safety improvements as a goal. Again, this year, there are still a number of things that we know are top of mind for the community. We recently received a list of TAC priorities that they'd like the town, the DPW, to incorporate into the long-term capital plan. The staff traffic management team is also working hard every year on neighborhood traffic calming when those requests come forward. If we were to continue the goal, we currently have that drafted as to continue to advance roadway, pedestrian, bicycle safety improvements, including further review of high priority locations, evaluating piloted traffic calming measures, including tax analysis of target speed policy, with recommendations to be made by staff to the board. So that's something that came up just in the past few months that I think the DPW still needs more time to consider before they'd be able to make a recommendation on that. Again, that's specifically the target speed idea. But certainly we're going to continue all the other work that we're doing on our normal roadway and intersection improvements.
I think that's a very important goal.
Next question on that, and it's, I think we've talked about it before, and it's probably outside of our range of what we can do, but all these e-bikes and motorized scooters, et cetera, is there, other than sit around and whine about it, do we actually have levers of power?
I think we should lead on that,
Or can we just,
vocal about it. And
or discuss it? Like, I mean, I'm sure. Well, what do you think?
Short answer is yes, I think we can and should be vocal about it. I think it falls into the first category of advancing safety improvements, but we can certainly highlight the particular, need to focus on e-bikes. As long as it's worded like that in a goal, I'm completely fine with that. My only caution is there are some real practical limitations about what physically we can do or changes we can do, but the issue is real.
So I think about this the same way I thought about last summer about the bias one, which was such a community issue that we had to say we would support. I think this is the same thing.
The same as
Last summer we said we feel strongly about the anti-bias work of the schools, and we want to say we affirm that and express our support. I think this issue deserves the same, like, this is important to us really, and I want to call that specifically, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've shown I'm not a big fan of like writing letters to the legislature.
Me neither.
But on this one, I mean, it's just outrageous that you can have like kids riding these things that are like motorcycles.
Adults and adults.
Well, yeah, I guess so, yeah. So at any rate, that'd be nice to see on the list.
I can add something about a specific focus on advocacy around the topic of e-bike safety, and maybe advocacy, and I can expand that a little bit more, but that's the first one.
Yeah, as Matt mentioned, it's discussed frequently in our monthly traffic meetings. We have upped our enforcement at areas where we can, which is you need a sign posted to actually have the police called, as an example. So they're not allowed on Sabrin Field because it damages the field and the turf, for instance. So we're reminding people that since it's a posted sign, if there's a parent there, for instance, and someone is riding an e-bike, you can actually call the police. Now, the police are going to go down and tell someone to just leave that area, as an example, but at least you're not scaring people. Sometimes people are zipping around, startling children and getting in the way. We posted a sign at the town center playground. So those are such baby steps, but then you do have the police department following legislation and advocating for the town, so we can certainly keep that as a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I would even be interested in, even if it's not specific to e-bikes and e-scooters and stuff, I don't even understand whether or not we have, you know, in our current bylaws, some sort of nuisance stuff, because, I mean, you know, do we have to wait for the legislature to do something? Maybe not. So, and that, we don't have to have that in the goal, but I think, you know, as we think about it, it's like, you know, I would like to see if the police can do even more.
Currently have focus on advocacy and enforcement as it relates to e-bikes and e-bike safety initiatives. I know you said maybe it could go beyond e-bikes, but
I don't even know the universe. I just motorized annoying.
Scooter. I don't know. Yeah, I've been in some towns where there's really overt big signage, which we don't do. And not that we should, but I'm willing to think about being bigger and bolder about this, and we probably should be. Sure.
Yeah.
You can interpret that expansively if you feel like it. So.
second goal under transportation is the great work that's been done for the Wilson Park redesign to date. We have an update on the fiscal year 26 goals. Just note, most recently, the committee's guidance to VHB was unanimously supported by the 8 members present after a site walk and negotiations, with really a focus on safety and traffic flow balanced against the park's character and tree preservation. So quite a challenge, but there seems to be some consensus there. Next step is going to be to review the schematic design in September and to report the recommendations to the board later in the fall. So we're recommending that goal continue. The current draft says we will support the ad hoc Wilson Park Committee through the review of the schematic design alternatives, the receipt of the recommendations, and development of a preferred plan, and then we will integrate a funding request into the long-term capital plan if a preferred design is selected.
Yes. Yeah. Keep up the good work.
Well, that's only 2 goals under transportation, but the first one is really quite a catch-all now. So unless there's something real specific, I think we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Back to it if anybody else comes up with anything else. Moving on to community investments and engagement.
Well, we could put that a select board member is going to climb the pole at Wilson.
Reach the top.
I'm way too smart to try to climb.
It's already training.
Volunteered. Next
I'm
year.
actually going, yes, I'm I'm one of the members now.
Bopa must
Wait,
reach
you're
the top.
in the.
I'm in the company.
Do you have a kit? You have the whole.
Huh?
You have the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the whole. What are you gonna do as citizen of the year? Well, that's, yeah, I don't
You're
know.
gonna have to
For-
choose which
for
one
the
you like
march,
better.
For Bedford Day too. I'm not sure if I'm going to march with them or you.
Maybe we can take a vote on who she marches with.
March alone.
March along with my outfit one day for our meeting.
You're so cool. You're so cool.
That would be kind of fun.
I am a member now.
You like voted on it? You're like, I'm just joining. Like they said yes?
Voted on it.
Was it a unanimous vote? Was it an open meeting?
Under 30 seconds.
I am climbing.
Congratulations, Sergeant, Lieutenant.
Bopa, can you do it in under 30 seconds? Because that's gonna
I'm
go.
going to practice. Yes, I would like to beat that.
Are you going to yell freedom at the top?
I will.
So wait, there's only one place you can practice. So if we're driving.
So cool. I will never climb that pole. Sorry, Matt, for that
No.
distraction.
On
Bopa.
community investments and engagement, this is sort of our catch-all category. Local government participation. Over the past year, we completed AV upgrades in key meeting spaces, including this one. We improved accessibility features such as hearing loop technology. We also continued working with the Commission on Disability and individual boards to expand hybrid meeting capabilities through equipment training and ongoing tech support. That's sort of a new addition to the end of the goal, and we anticipate that will continue into fiscal year 27. We think this is one that we can keep and should keep as a goal. There's more work to do. See, the Disability Commission is really starting to, I think, ramp up and I don't know how to word it, but they're they're going on 3 years now of being an active committee. They've got their feet under them. The facilities in the DPW are starting to get more used to their input as a committee, and I think we're going to continue to learn more and find new ways to improve if we keep this as a goal. I do think eventually this, may become so commonplace that we don't need it as a goal. But as of right now, I'm happy to keep it as a goal.
I think it's important to keep as a goal. I mean, we still get a lot of people coming in and saying, particularly for town meeting, we'd like to participate, we can't participate. So,
One thing that we recommend focusing on potentially is the potential expansion of hybrid meeting capabilities. That does involve some training from staff to individual board members, but we're willing and able to do that if other committees want to learn how to use hybrid meetings. It is a little bit easier now without the owls. That was one of the issues before, carrying them between different rooms, and if 2 people tried to reserve one, then we did get a second owl, but then one of the owls stopped working. Now you don't need an owl in either of these 2 meeting rooms. We do still have them if we had to have like a third hybrid meeting at the same time. I can, if you want us to focus again on special attention to town meeting,
yeah.
that's not in here. Just as a reminder, special attention to town meeting accessibility. We'll go back to, yeah, sorry, Amy.
I was just going to say, I think when Matt talks a little bit about our next goal, there's going to be an education component to town meeting that I think will also help people understand town meeting more, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So, next one's a great goal, board and committee training. We have a link here to the board and committee resource page that we have a lot of great training resources. I know the word's already there for that we've consolidated into one site. We also have a photo here from the training that town council put on along with the assistance of our human resources department. More recently, we've started researching a potential civics academy. Really not for discussion tonight, but just for reference, we did put sort of a draft schedule in your packet. We had started working with Joe Russo before he left on that, and as soon as Matt came on board, he picked up the mantle and has really been leading the charge on that. So we're looking for a spring civics academy. You probably heard about it in a lot of other communities. It's usually anywhere from a 6 to 10 night program. That's 1 night a week. And you get a certificate at the end. Communities go through a selection process. They usually have around 20 individuals. They cover all sorts of categories of municipal government, finances, town meeting, public safety, and you get trained on all those different aspects of local government. And it's a way for really to target folks who don't know as much about local government, but who want to get involved to learn more about local government. So as we put that on an agenda to discuss the charge, you'll learn more about, our thoughts behind, who that will target, who will get preference for being appointed to that committee, and the types of things that they'll learn about.
Good. One thing I'd like to consider too is, should boards have specific trainings for new members? For example, like the housing boards, trainings on Chapter 40A, Chapter 40B, things like that. I'll speak more specifically. I know when we had the housing partnership, part of the problem was that we kept circling people in that would be eager to work on housing issues, and there wasn't really a way that they could come up to speed, obviously, on certain laws, and then they wound up leaving because they felt like they couldn't make a difference. So things like that.
I do think my draft based my comment promote board specific training, particularly for new board members. I do think that's something we can do. For example, not only are there PowerPoints, webinars available, pre-recorded, that folks could go seek out. We could certainly find one specific to planning boards or zoning boards and other things, and we could even pin those trainings to the pages for those boards, and we could proactively send 2 or 3 videos about what it means to serve on those boards and some of the laws around being on those boards. There's plenty of them actively available and current that we could send to new board members. Obviously, if we were just starting the program, we would send it to everyone, but on a more ongoing basis, targeting the new board members is something we could do with, very little effort.
I think that would be great, and maybe even add that to the spiel when we get people, like, there is an expectation that you will spend some time learning about this particular, the laws undergirding this particular board that you're joining.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Our office gets calls from time to time, even from people on elected boards that say, if they're not even familiar with their staff liaison, what they're supposed to do. So I think it should be incorporated into your appointment process, especially when it's a board that has regulatory or, any real sense of authority over something like that, conscom, planning.
I agree.
May I? I would just say that I think as that progresses, we should be frank about what, in fact, the different committees' actual duties and legal responsibilities are. So, for example, with the Bedford Housing Partnership, right? I looked at that. And more than anything, or maybe the only thing I think was it was more of a bully pulpit, right? Which is great, but, it's like some people get on a committee and say, okay, what are we going to do? Especially the Finance Committee. Finance Committee prepares the budget, and that's kind of with an asterisk. It's the staff that prepares the budget. And then I think they may give an opinion on anything that goes before town meeting. And yet you'll have folks who think that, they're just, going to be junior accountant, who would ever want to be, I don't know. But, so anyway, I think you get the idea, because that can be supremely frustrating, I think, for committee members. It's like, well, why did I even bother getting on this?
I agree. If there's a mismatch in expectation about what you're going to do and you get on there and you don't do that, then, yeah, that
It's frustrating.
is frustrating, at least a turnover, which certainly isn't good for the committee.
That's it.
Last one under community investment and engagement is our town common construction. Last year was improvements to the town common. We have a schematic design in your packet. The project will be bid in January, with construction taking place throughout the 2027 season. Specifically, we're targeting April through November of 2027. This is an important goal that, our office and, a lot of different departments are going to be keeping an eye on and working on. It's a real focus to get this done before our 300th anniversary celebration. So certainly no harm in keeping it as a goal, especially where we haven't even broke ground on it yet.
Agreed.
I think it's important. Where's the beer garden going to be then next year?
I actually just recently told Eric that next summer we're going to have to relocate it, so I think we might put it on a different field somewhere. Yeah, maybe over here by the pavilion,
Yeah,
baseball field or something. Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
but he is aware that it's going to be closed for next summer.
Could even have
May I ask
karaoke.
a question that goes back to the hybrid meeting stuff, which probably not the right venue, but I'm going to ask anyway. Every hybrid meeting, there's a reading of the Massachusetts law that says.
You don't have to read that anymore.
We do not have to read it. Okay, got it. Thank you.
We can share that with
To be
people.
clear, yeah, because it is sort of like.
You can read
cup.
it,
Yeah,
but you're not required to by the state anymore.
thank you.
Would you like us to share that with everyone?
I think that's a yes.
Sure, yes, great,
We
thank
have
you.
there are a few other, actually speaking to board and committee updates. I think the past few years, we've done a better job from our office, kind of giving people updates about agenda formats, minute formats, things like that. So we can do that a little bit more frequently and include things like that to remind people. Of course, a chair can run the meeting more or less, as long as it's respectful, organized, following open meeting law, but you do not need to make that statement anymore. You can remind people.
So now would be the time if there are any other items under community investments and engagement. And I also just, before everyone also runs, I do just want to note, I like to say this every year, really just thank the staff talking specifically about the completion of the fiscal year 26 goals, completion or progress towards them for the ones that aren't yet complete. It really takes a team. We have a wonderful team. I very much enjoy working here, really for two reasons: the cooperation and teamwork of the board that I have, as well as the department heads and all of our staff. They make it a wonderful place to work, and we get a lot accomplished because of the great staff that we have here. So this report is coming from our office, but just want to know that it couldn't be done without all of the departments providing their valuable staff time and input and hard work.
Amazing. So any other things you want to throw in this section or in general, Mr. Parker? No. Mr. Mortensen?
No.
Okay. Ms. Malone?
No.
Nothing else. Mr. Hannigan?
We have notes in here we've been taking along the way.
What about me?
Oh, sorry, I was going to draft your next meeting,
That's
but
okay.
sorry, go ahead. Anything else?
No, I think this is a comprehensive list. I do wonder about Fawn Lake every year, but I feel like that's just an ongoing. Go ahead. Yeah.
So recently, the Conservation Commission has discussed Fawn Lake because we're wrapping up the last bit of hydro raking and treatment. That was part of the appropriation from about 3 years ago from a CPC perspective. So Jeff Summers has asked the Conservation Commission to discuss what they see the vision for Fawn Lake looking like, because they're in charge of the permitting. So they've had a few conversations the past few meetings, and we've asked them to think about at some point in the future coming to the select board, because they certainly want your feedback about what type of investment you would all like to make, because there would need to be an annual maintenance plan, essentially, which the community preservation cannot fund maintenance. But if we don't want it to kind of be taken over and maintained as it is, that would probably be something, speaking of coordinating things like planning board and the select board, conservation and select board will most likely want to potentially go to town meeting as an example with a plan. So you will see some members of the Conservation Commission probably asking to be in front of you at some point in the next 6 months to chat.
The other thing which sort of is hot and cold is sort of Hanscom is a multifaceted thing that exists, which touches the education, which touches the development, which touches the air quality study, which was very intense, and then it sort of petered off for a while. So I don't know how to sort of say, like, Hanscom's always important, and we should be, I don't know if we can lead on that, or just like, it involves so many different committees, but it kind of comes and goes. So I'm not sure if it needs to be a standalone goal, but it is important, and it really isn't in here as something that we deal with across many committees and boards.
Depending on how it's worded, some communities, some communities have a lot of goals, and because, but part of that is because they include things that aren't as tangible. So if the goal was, continue to closely monitor the activities and potential expansion at Hanscom and ensure, proper advocacy for public safety and health throughout the process, I think that would be appropriate. It's something that.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking about last fall, and there was a whole bunch of forums on air quality, and a lot of us were at those meetings, and it was like, what are we going to do next? And I think everyone's waiting to say, like, who's going to do what first? And I don't know if it's us, if it's the Board of Health, if it's one of the Hanscom committees, but nothing has been said. I mean, HATS hasn't met in 18 months, but I feel like it's just out there as a thing. So again, does it have to be a goal? No, but I'm cognizant that Hanscom is it's just there and can bubble up at any moment, and a lot of us are engaged in some of those conversations. So for me, it's really focused on the air quality piece and just waiting for, of all surrounding towns, like, what's our role in that conversation, or do I just need to be talking to more people, which is probably true. So I think that's to be in here, and I probably said too much about it, so thanks for listening.
Are you talking about HATS specifically?
Well, it's HATS, it's your committee, it's the Board of Health, it's everyone that was involved in reviewing. How can we, when the funding for the air quality study went away, what do we then do next? And everyone's like looking, well, is it you, is it you, is it you, is it you, is it us? I actually don't know if it's us. But maybe it should be, maybe we should be talking about it intentionally. But again, not as a select board goal, I don't think, but this was a moment to say, like, it's been quiet, and I don't know why it's been quiet, and it probably shouldn't be quiet, at least on our level.
Well, in terms of my committee, HVAC, I wouldn't say it's been quiet in terms of what the commission has talked about regarding both ICE and airport expansion, that, you know, there's been a lot of conversations from the other commission members, the other area towns, and so they're looking for our input on that front. Not quite sure what's going on with HATS, but in terms of HVAC, ICE has been one issue, and the other issue has been airport expansion. So,
All right.
Just food for thought. Thank you.
And if anything comes up in the next 2 weeks, or we have any more thoughts on that or any of the other issues, there's no prohibition against changing or, you know, adding or further tweaking. Next meeting when we'll finalize the list.
Sure.
That's all we have for this evening.
Okay. Our next meeting is August 10th. I may not be here, but if not here, I will attend remotely, which means it's your meeting, Terrence, so get excited.
okay.
Anything else? I think we're ready for Paul's favorite motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn, and seconded, roll call vote. Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Ms. Malone?
Yes.
Mr. Hannigan?
Aye.
I'm a yes. We are adjourned at 5:46 PM. Thank you. See you August 10th.